Welcome back to the London Free Press Podcast. Thank you once again for joining us. I'm your host, Lynzee Barnett, and it's been all consuming. It's all anybody is talking about. Our life once again put on hold as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people were comparing things to March 2020 over the last few weeks, kids being pulled out of school. We are watching arenas empty out. And I'm joined today by London Free Press sports reporter Ryan Pyette. Ryan, how you doing?
Great, Lynzee. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. I was just saying to you, I know we're talking COVID-ish, but any excuse to talk hockey in my mind is a great thing. But we do need to talk about the London Knights and the OHL on a bigger picture, because there's been a lot of moving pieces, a lot of changes. So as I just mentioned, kids out of school until at least Monday. The provincial order is in place for other things like viewing sports in the arena on hold until at least January 27th. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to go well beyond that with the way that we are seeing cases continue to spike and lack of testing and so on and so forth. So let's first talk about the Knights. They've had, I think, 5 games postponed so far this year. One as recent as last Saturday. What's going on? Is that kind of deflating for the team if they're getting any momentum?
Yeah, I think it's deflating for everybody. You look at these guys, look at the schedule at the start of the year, and we all do. Look, they're in the Sioux at this time. They're going to Saginaw. They're for 2 or whatever. And yeah, it's deflating whenever you miss a game, because at the end of it, Lynzee, you don't know if these games are going to be made up. Like, these guys sign up to play 68 games, and if they don't have that, then it's a bit of a miss. So plus the playoffs. But I think this is a worrisome trend to me, because I think you start at the Memorial Cup in June and you work your way backwards through the playoffs. There's a fixed date there at the start of June that the Memorial Cup has to be played out in St. John, New Brunswick this year. So, you have to, if you don't have all your games played in the regular season by the time the playoffs are supposed to start, and then you don't get your playoffs done by the time that the Memorial Cup is going to start, that's a big problem. You need to. So, I can see a thing where point percentage comes into play, where some teams play 62 games, some are at 58. And then it's going to come down to your winning percentage. So, there's a lot of factor in. We all hope that there's enough runway right now if they get started, and if they get started, doing these games, rescheduling them, that they might be able to get them all in. But right now, I'm not too optimistic about that, because I know more games are going to get postponed. I do know there's been about 50 plus already in the league, and there's going to be more. This isn't over yet for the postponing games.
I'm glad that you mentioned that. The league's been pretty silent so far. I think everybody's just kind of holding their breath, waiting to see kind of what happens. But again, we've seen the league completely stop last season because of the pandemic. Is that something that is a potential for this year, even without the fans in the stands? Like, the NHL is using what was going to be the Olympic break to make up games, because they've been dealing with so many postponements as well. We don't have that same luxury with regards to the OHL.
Yeah. Of course, with this virus, everything's on the table. They could shut right down again. Now, I've been told by multiple teams and governors in the OHL that they're going to make a hell of an effort to keep this thing going, and they already are by playing. If anybody knows the financial situation of the of major junior hockey, is they depend on gates. It's driven by people paying for their season tickets and people paying for tickets to come to games to fill in the rest of those seats. And most teams need around 3,000 to 4,000 people to break even per game. So, and if you don't have that, you're in tough financial straits. Now, here in London, we know the situation. Although the Hunters are losing money right now, they've done well over the years. Let's say with the revenue, so they can be able to withstand this longer than most teams. But I think across the league, they know these kids. They canceled the season last year. If we look at the history, they canceled the season last year. They canceled the playoffs in 2020. They don't want to look the kids in the eyes and say, guys, we're shutting down again. I know they don't want to do that. So they're really good, even though the cases are rising among the teams, like we saw in Quebec. It's very much like in Quebec a year ago, where Quebec got to the finish line. By the way, they did finish, but they had a bunch of cases. So now there's a bunch of cases here, but they're still going to try to soldier through. And I guess they have that, that Quebec template, I guess, right? So they're going to keep soldiering through, but at some point, probably in a month or so, if they don't have people in the stands, even like half, say, then it's going to be like, how much money can we afford to lose, right? And some teams more than others.
I'm glad that you said that too, because the big question mark is, and we're very fortunate here in London, the fans here are rabid and we see them come out in droves. It's not like that in a lot of communities, and a lot of other communities have a lot smaller arenas that cannot accommodate the amount of fans like we get here in London. Is there real concern from certain teams that they might just have to fold? Like, we've never seen this before, but as we know, the OHL is a business and money does make the world go round. This is getting a little concerning.
Yeah, it is. Now folding, I'm not sure. I think, maybe, they still have to go through the, which I would be sad about, is they might have to look at their staff, right? And they, once the season got going this year, a lot of teams were able to take their, the staff or hire new staff or bring back staff before that they couldn't have during the pandemic. There was, they couldn't afford to pay for them. There are teams in that situation, right? Or went lean and mean kind of thing, to just kind of bare bones to get through. But you can't go through a hockey season bare bones, right? You have to have people to help you. It's a big it's a big business, big commitment. So yeah, I think I think there's the guys that owns the team for the most part in the OHL. There's a lot of there's a lot of businessmen and money, but it's like, okay, so if you have a guy that has a ton of money, like how, and he looks at this as a business, how much is he going to, before he says, this is I'm losing too much money here, I got to shut this down. So I know they have 20 teams and they want to keep 20 teams. So that they're going to work like crazy to make sure that they don't do that. And they make decisions as a league, right? Like, it's not just going to be London, Windsor, Kitchener saying, no, we want to keep playing. They got, that's what the Board of Governors meetings are for, to say, if 10 of our teams or 5 of our teams can't go, what do we do here? Because at the end of the day, you need teams to play, right? You need a league to play in. And I mean, I grew up, I'm a little older than you, Lynzee, and the OHL had 12, 14, 15 teams when I was growing up. There's been about 6 teams added over that time. But so you could have the league with 12, 13, 14 teams, but that's not what anybody wants, right? They want to have 20 teams. It's more opportunity for more kids to play major junior hockey when you have 20 teams, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. The juice has to be worth the squeeze in a lot of aspects. I do want to touch on last week here in London, and it is kind of touching on the fans and the financial aspect, but I also was kind of emotional, weirdly, about it. For the first time ever since the London Knights have been in Budweiser Gardens, the curtains were drawn in the upper bowl. And I just thought, how jarring. And you would think after being in this pandemic for 3 years now, or 2 years, sorry, we would be used to these moments of like, oh my God, what is happening? No, when I saw it, I was like, man, it kind of hit me right in the chest a little bit. It was a little sad.
Yeah.
Like, that's weird, right?
Yeah, you got me emotional. I had a shiver when you mentioned it. I had a shiver go up my spine, because that's like my second home, right? And I was at the Auto on Sunday in Kitchener, and nobody in the building. And usually it's a confrontational atmosphere when the Knights are there, where they're yelling, "You suck," and all that, and they hate the Knights in Kitchener, right? So for that not to be there, just that canned, go Rangers, go, let's go Rangers, just to hear that, it hits you in the heart, because that's what junior hockey is. Junior hockey is the kids playing and being coached and going on to the next level. Then we watch them in the NHL or pro or become lawyers or whatever. It's great. But, there's a fan aspect to it where, there's a huge investment. And you're right, curtaining it off Friday, that was it's a point of pride in London that's never been curtained off for a hockey game. That's a huge point of pride. So yeah, that's a tough one. And but I know there would be, if people were allowed to go and it was safe, that they'd be there.
Absolutely, without a doubt. What are the players saying about the canned sound effects and cheers? Because I know that was something the NHL players had touched on when they first started to bubble last year. It was weird, and they had to really find a way to make their own energy in the arenas. I imagine it's got to be the same for these kids. What are they saying to you about it, though?
Yeah, it's weird. These guys watch a lot of NHL games. Like, they're constantly watching NHL games to the point where sometimes they need a break from it, right? And then in their video sessions, they watch NHL games. So they're quite aware. They saw it. But until you go into that, until you're there in the rink, you can't really describe what it's like. I love it as a reporter. I love it because I can actually hear everybody talking on the ice, which is really interesting to me, because normally I hear the crowd chattering and cheering and stuff like that, or the ads, right? You hear the ads, but you can actually hear them, especially the linesman talking to the, one point was, Antonio Stranges got called for icing and he in Kitchener, and he didn't think it was an icing. And then the linesman was explaining to him why it was an icing. And it was really interesting to kind of hear that being explained to him. I'd usually have to ask that after the game. So the kids think it's weird, and they do have to create their own energy. But I remember talking to Dylan Hunter recently, and he said it is, you do have usually the crowd, especially at home, pushes you along and rises you up and keeps you in the game. You have to do that themselves. So they're constantly telling the kids on the bench, stay in it, giving them little reminders, right? To don't wander. We need you up here. And one thing Dylan said that I thought was funny was, he goes, at least now that the kids can't say that they can't hear us when we're yelling at them at the bench because of the fans, right? So yeah, really strange, because I miss it all. I miss the guy that yells out "Go Knights, go" before the national anthem. I miss the whole thing, and I really hope that the government allows at least 1,000. When we started at the start of the year, Lynzee, at the exhibition games, there was only a few people allowed. I'd like to see it go by, and I know the way the Ford government works, it's baby steps. So we're not going to go right back to 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 people. So we'll probably see maybe a couple hundred or 1,000 to start. And then and then maybe half again, which is where we left off, right? And then maybe build from there. But the Knights have an exciting team, and they got a great goaltender in Brett Brochu, and they're a team that deserves to be watched, and they deserve to be watched in person too. So that makes it tough.
Absolutely. I watch a lot of hockey, NHL and OHL when I can. And it just feels stale with the arenas being empty. And I can totally appreciate where you're coming from, just missing the atmosphere. I can sense it through the TV, even though I'm not in the arena right now, So I really hope that you're right. Ryan, thank you so much for your time and for your insight. As always, this has been great.
Yeah, more mascots. I watched the Raptors game the other night, and the mascot got in trouble. So throw a bunch of mascots in there, I guess.
Dark Guy and Curtis from Alberta, diehard Leaf fans, were the only two fans in Scotiabank Arena a few games ago. And somebody snapped a picture of Carlton the Bear, and he was just hanging out in the stands all by his lonesome, kicking back. It was, again, a weird, kind of sad photo, but also kind of made you smile. And at least the mascots are still there, better than nothing. Has Scorsy been there?
You know what? I didn't see him, so I'm sure he'll be. I'm sure he'll make an appearance as this goes on, because you can't keep Scorsy off the ice, right? He's got to get his laps in there.
That's right. Well, we'll start a petition if Scorsy hasn't been there, and if he doesn't come back before the end of season, he's the heart and soul and the backbone of the team. We need Scorsy. Ryan, this has been great. I look forward to our next chat. If you've been enjoying this podcast, don't forget, you can always subscribe. We're streaming on all of the major platforms every Thursday, 7 a.m. A new episode comes out. We'll talk again next Thursday with another episode of the LF Press Podcast. Until then, stay well.